Hi. So I was working on a video on the Oculus Rift because I got the Quest 3, or the Meta Quest, I guess. It's not technically an Oculus Rift. I don't know. They're all different anyway. But this Sunday I don't know if it's technically called food poisoning because it's Crohn's related. There was nothing wrong with the food. It's just how my messed up digestive system wanted to deal with it, but it was really bad. So I missed class the next day. I can't do the Oculus. Not only do I not have time to finish it anymore, but I'm still not feeling 100%. I've basically been living off of saltine crackers for the past couple days, so I don't really feel comfortable throwing myself into that. But it got me thinking, it has been about a year since my Crohn's diagnosis and since I made the first video about it, and I wanted to kind of revisit it. I'm not in remission, which is a little disappointing. I was kind of hoping, because you hear this stuff about remission, about it basically being like you don't have Crohn's, and you're like, that sounds so cool. I'm not in remission. I don't know if it's possible for everyone, but I'm doing so much better. It's always there, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not usually getting food poisoning so bad that I have to miss class. That's only happened 3 times now, but it sucks. But I'm learning to live with it, and that's like the most I can ask for. In the first video I didn't talk about, the timeline that much. I was just like, I have Crohn's disease. Let's look at some merchandise. So I wanted to go through that. So the first symptoms I think actually started when I first started going to college. So like when I was 18, there were several times where I would wake up, not frequently, maybe once a month, but this started like my first semester of college, where I would wake up feeling crazy nauseous, and sometimes the nausea would just slowly go away as the morning went on. Sometimes it would come out, but that was probably one of the earlier signs, but that was the only symptom for a very long time. It became evident that there was a problem hi Penelope, it's my new foster cat, in August of 2022, because I suddenly developed this like acid reflux that was just like, I couldn't eat anything. The only thing that went down without burning was milk. Like, even plain water hurt to swallow. And I had to start rationing milk because you're not going to overdose on milk, but there's a limit to how much milk you should be there's a limit to how much milk you should be drinking in a day, and I was surpassing that. I eventually got to a doctor, and they gave me this medication that really helped clear it up, but that's when I knew something was wrong, because I'd gotten like heartburn for like one evening before, like, where you like eat something spicy, or I guess spicy for me, I have a very low spice tolerance. We'll get to that later. But you eat something that's like a little off, and then you have some acid reflux, you go to bed, it's gone in the morning. But this was the first time, not only that it was so severe, but it went for days on end, and like nothing over the counter was doing anything. And then in October, I got an endoscopy done, which is where they stick a camera down your throat, and they didn't see anything. But it was also around that time that I started developing these stomach pains that were just completely debilitating. I briefly touched on them in the last video, but it was like, when it was really bad, I couldn't walk, I couldn't focus on anything. It was, again, I don't want to trauma dump, I am coming on here because I feel like it's a tough story, and I want people to kind of know what the experience is like, but I will say it was really bad, and nobody knew what the matter was. I was getting several different, I don't know if they're diagnoses, because it was just what the doctors were like, this is what I think it is, and I don't think that counts as a diagnosis, but I was getting like several different answers from it was a different answer for every doctor I went to, And the first person to suggest that it might be Crohn's was a nurse practitioner that I'd been working really close with, and she ended up being correct, and a lot of the doctors were wrong, so give a hug to your local nurse practitioner. But Crohn's is just very hard to diagnose. It requires a procedure, and it's invasive, and when you have school and stuff, it's hard. First of all, it's just hard to schedule procedures, right? And then it's also hard to schedule procedures when you're doing school and when you're doing theater, and it's just like, it's a hot mess. And the stomach stuff was so bad. Like, I was taking Oxy for a while, and I don't want to take OxyContin because it's like super okay, I'm gonna say this. So if you don't know, OxyContin is, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, and if not, I don't feel bad because it is an opiate. I tried to take more like generic opiates, but they were not putting a dent in the pain. And Oxy, it is very, very effective, but it is very addictive. And I'm not going to equivocate on this point. It is addictive by design. It was designed to get people addicted, and it is very common for people who get on Oxy to then move up to drugs like heroin. And I started taking Oxy, and I was monitoring it super carefully because, like, last thing you need on top of a chronic illness is an addiction. And addiction is a disease, and so, like, if you get addicted, you can't will your way out of it. So the only way that I trusted myself to take this was to take it on a very consistent schedule so that my body didn't, like, get used to it. But even on the schedule that I was at, like, I can see how people get addicted. Like, I've not touched it in like a year now because I don't need it anymore. And again, I was very, very careful with it. But, like, it not only made the debilitating pain go away, but it replaced it with this, like, warm, glowy feeling. I don't want to recommend OxyContin because I actually think that it's this video is supposed to be about my personal experience. Is it just gonna evolve into how bad the medical industry is? Is this what this video is gonna be about? That's not my intention, but don't take Oxy unless you really need it because it feels really good. That's not my point. Don't get addicted to drugs. Try, please. So I'm taking Oxy and we're just managing the symptoms, and every doctor is telling me a different thing. Like, some of the doctors I'm talking to are like, this is cut and dry Crohn's disease. There were several specialists that I spoke to that, like, seemed irritated with my presence. They're like, it's obviously not Crohn's disease. You're too young. Your symptoms aren't severe enough. Over the course of this process, I have interacted with some of the, like, best human beings I've ever met. Like, some of these nurses and doctors I truly believe are doing the work of God. Some of these people, less so. And I get it. I get how being exposed to people's debilitating pain and suffering every single day can desensitize you. But I do feel like with the medical industry, like, doctors and nurses are dealing with people who are going through the worst period of their lives. And so I feel like some tact is appreciated. I'm not sure I've mentioned this on the channel before, but I have a phobia of doctor's needles. I love horror movies. I love haunted houses. I can do most things, but doctor's needles, there's something about them. I cannot deal with them. And so oftentimes doctors would want to get a blood test every time I came in for a check-in, and I was like, I can't do it. I am not emotionally stable enough to get a blood test right now. And some of the doctors were nice about it, some of them less so. It is amazing how many doctors and nurses try to, like, talk you out of a phobia as if you've never tried that before. As if you're like, don't worry about it. I'd never considered that before. And, like, a phobia is interesting because you see, like, these people be like, just play a game on your phone and pretend it's not there. And I always imagine, like, if you were in a locked room with a hungry lion, Do you think there's any app on your phone that could distract you from the fact that the lion is there and staring at you? I know that's a bit of an exaggerated example, but that's what it feels like to me. It feels like when they're like, just distract yourself. I'm like, I have a bunch of stories about this, but for the sake of this video, I'll tell one because I think it's funny in hindsight. This was a day where I was in very severe pain. Like, I could hardly speak. And I was at the doctor's, and my father had called ahead before I went in because he's an angel, and was like, she has a phobia of needles. She is not doing well today. Can y'all just not mention it? Please, like, don't ask to draw her blood. Don't, just leave it. And the doctor I was talking to, like the general practitioner guy, he didn't mention it once. He was super, like I could tell he was being cautious, and I really appreciated it. And then he leaves to get the specialist, because when you do appointments like this, you talk to the general practitioner and then you see a specialist. And she comes in, and I honestly don't think she had any malintent. I think this was... I cannot explain her thought process. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, but it did not read as malicious to me. But she comes in and she says, hey, so the doctor just told me that you have a phobia of needles. Well, you better hope you don't have Crohn's disease, because if you have Crohn's disease, you're going to be dealing with needles a lot. And this is not my proudest moment, but I started to cry, right? Like, I was in a lot of physical pain. I had sort of come to the realization, and we'll get to how my treatment works in a second, but I realized that treatment options for Crohn's are all needles, and the funny part is that not only did she look really guilty about making me cry, but she then left the room, and that was the end of the consultation, which is funny to me because, like, that was her job that day as the specialist, was to come in, say something that made me cry, and then end the appointment. I hope she's doing okay. I genuinely think that was just a bad moment. I don't think she meant any harm. But she'll probably be thinking of that next time she hears that a different patient has a phobia. I get my diagnosis, and there are 3 treatment options for Crohn's, at least 3 that were offered to me. You can get an IV in every 8 weeks. You can, and that's the one most people do, I believe. You can give yourself an injection every 2 weeks, or you can get an injection done every 8 weeks. But for that last option, you need to do one IV treatment first. The first one is the most effective, I think, for most people, but apparently, I'm not a doctor, I don't know anything, but apparently something about one of the blood tests I did shows that I would have, I don't know, man, it's something about I would have a more difficult time, like, absorbing that or something, so he'd want to do more frequent blood tests, so my doctor would want to do more frequent blood tests to make sure it was working. And none of that sounded appealing, because it's a 2-hour IV and then more frequent blood test. Like, all of this sounded miserable, so I eliminated that option. The injection that you do every 2 weeks, the benefit of it is that the needle is hidden, so you can do it to yourself. It's basically a EpiPen. You just, like, click it in. And this is very helpful for people who travel, because you can... But every 2 weeks sounded like hell on earth, so no. And so I went and got the first IV done, and I got prescribed medication that I basically blacked out. Not entirely, but I was able to get the IV done, and I was, like, so not, and the problem is that my adrenaline kind of keeps me awake, so I was awake until the IV went in. But then by the time it was in, the fear was gone, and I passed out, and I slept through the whole 2 hours. So that went fine. And I take medication every time I go in to get the injection done, which is every 8 weeks. And again, the same thing happens where I'm awake getting in there, I'm awake getting the injection, and then the moment it's done, I like pretty much pass out because the adrenaline is not keeping me awake anymore because the adrenaline's gone. So that's like, that was the progression of my symptoms, my diagnosis, and now my current treatment plan. So let's talk a little bit about my symptoms. This isn't going to be a long video because, again, I was sick and I'm still sick. But being sick has kind of made me reflect on this journey, and I wanted to share this with you guys. My symptoms have been better. I still get the stomach aches and cramps, obviously, but they're never... I mean, there are times where I'm like, I have to sit down right now. Like, I need to sit down. But it's never so bad that it's like, I can't walk, I can't do anything. So that's mostly good. The food poisoning, so I've always been a very picky eater, even before Crohn's disease. I'm a super taster, so I just have more taste buds than normal. So anything with even a little bit of spice in it just overwhelms me. So I basically eat like a 10-year-old, and I'm okay with that. Like, we've all got our quirks, and my quirk is that I order off the kids' menu an embarrassing amount of the time. And I think for that reason, I've been really blessed that that the food that I eat has for the most part been safe. Again, since getting diagnosed, there have only been 3 instances where I got that really severe food poisoning. Again, it's awful. Like, this Sunday, it was, I don't want to be gross, but it was like, you know, food poisoning, you know when you're like, yeah, you know, food poisoning. I lost count of how many times I threw up. But again, I don't want to be gross. You guys get the gist. And again, I cannot stress it up. It has happened 3 times since my diagnosis last year, which is not a crazy amount. And there have been a couple foods that I now have like, oh, I can't eat that anymore because it makes me throw up over and over and over and over. But most of the foods I eat are completely safe and won't make me sick. But if I didn't, I was always a little nervous about trying new foods because I have such sensitive taste buds, and now there's like a new layer to that. It's like, this could make my tongue burn, or it could like completely empty my stomach. It does not provide a ton of incentive to be a foodie, I don't know. Again, not the worst thing in the world. The foods I like are for the most part safe to eat, and I was never culinistically ambitious. I don't think that's how you say that. I was never a big person for like, I was never a foodie. I was never big for trying new foods anyway. So if I'm just going to eat off the kids' menu for the rest of my life, like, oh well, you know, like, there are worse fates. So that's kind of where I am now. My doctor is hopeful for remission. I don't know how common it is. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I just don't know if everyone can go into remission. It'd be great. Stomach aches suck. Being nauseous sucks. I still sometimes wake up feeling sick, like the morning sickness, and that's no fun because I've been late to things multiple times because I have to text people and be like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I'm running a little bit late because my body decided that waking up at 9 a.m. was too hard and now it wants to throw up, so we're just gonna lay here for a while. I don't hate my body. Even, I'm not like fond of the chronic illness, but the body as a whole is trying its best. I rewatched my last video before making this one, and I do stand by the points I made. Like, it's not as bad as it feels when you're in the middle of it. It's okay to not feel strong. I don't think my dark circles have gotten, the lighting is like way too bright, but I actually think my dark circles have not gotten darker. That was one of the things I was concerned about because a lot of people with Crohn's have like sunken eyes or extreme dark circles, and I already had pretty prominent dark circles, so I was like, oh my god, it's gonna get so much worse, but it didn't. You'll be okay. I am okay. I am mad at myself because I was crazy sick on Sunday, and I haven't had a proper meal since then because every time I try to eat something other than like plain crackers, yogurt, or a banana, my body's like, So that's not fun, but my day-to-day life is normal. I am no longer unable to do things. Last year there were like, I like basically stopped doing everything that wasn't kind of mandatory, but that's not the case anymore. My life is back to normal. I just have more tummy aches than usual, and I'm okay with that. Sorry if this video seemed a little down. I meant to make the story more funny, but I didn't script anything out. One, because I wanted to be more authentic, and two, because I was sick and did not have time to do anything. I guess you guys were here for me when I made the first video, and I wanted to provide a little bit of an update on that. Things are good. Even though I just kind of complained about, I mean, like, it's still a chronic illness, like, it's bad. My big advice, if you are dealing with serious medical issues, honestly, this is gonna sound bad, but don't let doctors and nurses walk all over you. You're going through a hard time. I appreciate that it can be easy to lose bedside manner when you're dealing with such extreme levels of pain every single day. But there are very good nurses and doctors out there. And if the people you are working with are not warm and compassionate, just be like, I'd like to talk to someone else. If they're grumpy with you, they probably won't mind anyway. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your support. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.